people don't invest the energy and they just feel like, oh, we'll just do another one because we'll just show up to show up. And that's not doing anything. It's just wasting your money.
Yeah.
But the industry has kind of created that, right? So it's like you
Yeah.
notice who's not there, right? But why not notice who's really taking it one step further?
Welcome to another episode of Event Marketing Redefined. I am your host, Matt Kleinrock, CEO of Rockway Exhibits and Events. Today, fun conversation with Brian Burkhardt. He is the founder of the Oliver Patch Project, and he is a true creative. We're really going to kind of dive into giveaways, design experiences, and kind of this face-to-face engagement and the way that your brand needs to show up, sort of derived from like ideas and a different way of doing things. So Brian, guy I've talked to a bunch, right? We ran your Oliver Patch project at our own event because I love it so much. But we've also worked together. You helped design a trade show booth for a client that we work with that you also work with, which actually won an award. So you have a very creative way of viewing things. So pumped to see you and excited to have you here. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt, for having me. I'm super excited to be here and excited to give you my insight on the industry in a whole. I come from, in my past life, before I was running the nonprofit, I am, from the print fabrication component of it, done many trade shows, and also kind of based out of Miami now, but did a lot of shows in New York. And so I'm familiar with the world and also familiar with what you're hoping to get from your audience, right? And I have maybe a non-traditional approach, but so far it's been pretty good.
We love non-traditional. I would say I'm probably viewed as non-traditional at this point. But yeah, from talking like your background in fine art, design, brand strategy, print, you have a whole creative background. I think one of the things I want to ask is like, you do have a different mindset. You do have a different way of approaching things just based on our conversation. So like, what's something in the way that you approach a creative project that you think a lot of creatives overlook or brands just overlook that you do very well and apply on your projects?
I would say that for me, I think what happens is a lot of brands think that the most successful form of marketing is by putting their logo on every single thing you do, rather than creating an emotional reaction, right? I think, even when it comes down to marketing material, I mean, let's be 100% honest. When a client comes to your booth, majority of this stuff doesn't even leave the hotel room, right? Or if it's lucky, it gets to go. The kids get it when they go home, And I think there's been traditional ways of doing it. I mean, but, if I'm gonna express honestly how I feel, how many beer koozies can you need, or fans, or pens, or and some have the functionality too, which is great. I think it's not necessarily, it's what we've been told we need to do, right? It's what we do, but I don't believe that. I think if you can create a memorable experience, especially when it comes to booth, if you can somehow give your audience something to remember, right? And I say that because, I think if someone comes to your booth and is like, what the heck just went on there? Like, they're going to be talking about that. They're going to remember that, let alone if you can kind of do something that philanthropically can represent your company culture, right? Represent who you are as a person, I think we have a huge responsibility. And I think the newer generation wants to align themselves with brands that care, brands that want to be involved, that have some kind of mission, some kind of statements, whether they support the environment, whether they support healthcare issues, whether they support diversity and inclusion, whether they support, pediatric cancers, I really think when your audience, your clients come to your event space, they really want to know what you do, want to know what your core values are. And kind of if you could do something from a philanthropic, we call it philanthropic marketing budgets or marketing experiences. I think it's a really important thing. And it's a chance to not only do something awesome, but do something that has an impact.
So a few things you said there that I really, really like. One is talking about the emotional reaction that you're trying to create, right? What that makes me think about when I think about events and trade shows is essentially, I'm a huge believer that like these physical in-person events are really a catalyst for these brands. The in-person is very different. It's very personal. And when you do them the right way, it is a catalyst for relationship building, adds pipeline, moves pipeline, closes pipeline, which is what these companies want to do. I think the other piece of it is I'm thinking about what you're saying is like, a lot of people just get looped up into doing what they've always done or what they've been told to do. So they do the same thing. They go back to the well versus I feel like when I talk to you and we've had conversations, you're thinking like, okay, this is the brand. This is who they are. This is who they're speaking to. How can I help them speak to one another and understand? And I think I love what you were saying about point of view, mission, having an opinion, standing for something. Those to me are stories. And I think a lot of like my job, your job, and other people in these seats, if you have a creative company that produces an output, is you have to help company tell stories to people. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think I agree with everything you're saying. And, I think what happens is I think a lot of companies, they're afraid, right? They're afraid.
Yeah.
It's funny because I believe you want to stand out.
Yes.
You want to be the person like that's in the room that people are like, oh, that's really interesting. Because I mean, listen, you go around a trade show, there's different trends, right? There's different
Yeah.
technologies, there's different
It's a sea of
right?
parity out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, first and foremost, when I think it comes to executing, a design, you think about what, in the fashion industry, and I was in fashion for a while, it's like, who's your girl and where's she going, right? You got to know where you're going, what you want to convey. First and foremost, whether that's a new systems that you're trying to, a new product, a new technology, you got to understand what that is that you want to get across, right? What is your mission of coming to that trade show? You have something new, you have some, or and then from there, what are the key words and key emotions and key things that are relevant to what you're trying to get across, right? So build that story. I mean, anything you can have a creative approach to, and I don't care if it's the most boring conceptual, conceptually you can create something from that, right? And that I think is weaving that story not only into what your booth is saying, but also in what you're presenting and what you're giving away, right? Yeah. How do you basically make a cohesiveness to it, right? I mean, and that's easily said than done, but not only deciding to do it, but doing it. And I say that because I've come across, and you've come across this, everyone's fully open to the ideas and the excitement. And then when it comes down to it, it gets so weeded down to homogenous that it becomes boring. So, and I think within the corporate structure that the tendency always to do it. But I know without a question of a doubt that if you're ready to put yourself on the line, right, it takes a lot of faith to know and to trust whoever creatively is going to go for it, like, and back that. So there is that fear and there is that, but also that excitement that comes with it.
Yeah. Why do you think so many companies play it safe and they don't take risks creatively? Because I often I sit in the seat where I own and I run my company. So for us, I'm always so open, like, let's do this, it's easy for me. But when you get into a lot of bigger companies, there's a lot of, red tape, bureaucracy, there's all these different things. But at the end of the day, like standing out and telling a story is what wins in person. It's like, it's those ideas, it's those concepts, it's those themes, it's those giveaways that tie to A, B, and C, these different things that you're doing that win. So why do you think a lot of companies, they play it safe, they don't take risks, and they don't go out on that like creative limb?
I think it deals with the people that are in charge of kind of, so that there's, the systems of like, they don't want to put themselves in a situation like, I think some people don't want to put themselves on the line, right? From a creative standpoint, like within that company, right? They don't want to push it too far. So they know it's easier to exist in at a certain level because, there's a fear that's involved with that. I think the brand guidelines of a company, although I understand the essentialness of it, I think people are too literal with sticking to brand guidelines. I think it becomes stifling. I think it chokes out like any sort of creativity. I mean, look at all the amazing award-winning ad campaigns. I mean, why does everyone wait for the Super Bowl to see something awesome? And they're absurd. Most of the Super Bowl, commercials are like, it's like almost like an award for who's the most out there, right?
Yes.
But those are the ones that get the most attention. Those are the ones, so I think especially now with social media and everything that we see, it is about that moment, right? About that moment. It's about, putting something out there and telling your audience wants to enjoy it. They want that. It's just
Yeah.
the brand has to stand behind that, so it's scary from the way things have traditionally been done. It's a different way of thinking, right? I can tell you once someone takes that leap of faith, they also have a responsibility to keep that going, right? Because
Yeah,
people are going to
sure.
be like,
Then it's what are you
what's
going to do
next?
next?
What are you
What's
going to do
next?
next? And
Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
are you going to outdo what you did next? So I
Yeah.
always tell people when they want to come up with ideas, I'm like, if you're going to do it, like get ready because you're going to have to
Yeah.
keep doing it, right?
Got
So
to keep that train running.
run them.
American Eagle just did it with the new campaign with Sydney Sweeney, right? The whole
Yep.
thing with the jeans. I mean, and they made for better or for worse, right? They say no press is bad press type thing. So let's do a little bit of a scenario here. So say
Sure.
we had a company, they had us design them, or maybe they got you in the beginning stage because they should probably get you in before the trade show booth is designed, right? A lot of companies won't. They would come after and they get people too late to the game. But let's just say company that we're working with, you and I, we're sitting down at the table the first time with them. It's a
Mhm.
30 by 30 trade show booth. And, we're trying to come up with like an intentional creative strategy to then go design the booth and then go execute because that's how it's done right. And you're tasked with kind of leading the meeting. How do you start that meeting? How do you run that first meeting? What are you trying to pull out of that? And what are you looking to do to move the ball down the field?
I think first I would want to I would do the research on who I was talking to first, right? I kind of learn
Yep.
a little bit about their company and what they do. I would ask them, questions like, what's their ideal client? What's their ideal
Mm-hmm.
partner? What's their
Mm-hmm.
ideal, kind of understanding like emotionally how they want to go about, like, what do they want to get across, right? Kind of really pinpoint, like, what is their mission of what they're trying to convey at the exhibit hall, right?
And give me some examples. 'Cause I think the emotional part that you just talked about is so important because sometimes people are like, oh, this is our audience and this is what we do for them. And it's like, no, 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 no. I know you're talking about something different. What do you mean by what they're emotionally trying to convey?
I think everyone has an agenda for every show, whether
Mm-hmm.
there's like, a product that they're bringing to market, whether there's a service that they're trying to offer,
Yes.
whether there's a new technology they're trying to launch, right? I think once you in the end, that's what it's about. Like you have to get that out there, right? Because then you
Yeah.
would defeat the whole purpose of what you're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
there's very clever ways of doing it, right? There's clever ways. So you could think about the client, like what I say about your clients is like, what's the age bracket of the people coming in attendance? And then look at from their eyes, like, what are they being exposed to, right? What are
Mm-hmm.
they like? What generation do they represent? What's out there that's influencing them on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, I get
I
that.
think emotionally, what I mean by it is that what do you want from a brand? You cannot talk to your client. You can. I don't believe you should talk to your client without trying to them to walk away with something, that they feel something. If someone
Yeah.
could walk away from one of my booths feeling anything,
Yeah.
I've done what I've done. Remembering anything for even to the point of be like, yo, that was
Yeah.
so absurd. Like that is what you
Yeah.
want. Like that
Yeah.
is what you want because that's what's going to separate you from somebody else. Like if
Yes.
your booth looks like everybody else, then I think you could potentially be. I mean, potentially shows you're doing something that the person next to you is doing something similar, right? Why are
Yeah.
you different? Why
Yeah.
would they want to work with you? More than that, of course, you have to be able to have a good product. You have to have a good company.
Yes, of course.
It's not a
Yeah.
gimmick. But why would they want to work with you? But really, why do they remember you?
Yeah. I always think about when you're saying that, what it brings me to is I'll talk sometimes with our clients or as we're working on something and working on a project, I'll say, where are we trying to move them to? Right? Like, where are we trying to move them emotionally? Where are they at? Where are these people at are they decision makers or are they influencers? Do they know nothing about us or do they know about us, but haven't really worked with us? Or are we talking to a lot of people that know who we are, who are very familiar? Like, where are they at in this journey of understanding company X? Because I think then that dictates a little bit the story you tell, the way you want to make them feel, the experience that you drive for them.
100%. And I mean, I think you hit that right in the head. It's like you have to know who your client is, right? You have to
Yeah.
know who's coming? Are these new people? Is this a show that you've done for years?
Yeah.
Are you new at the show? Is it, because that's approaching it from it's not like just do something silly and ridiculous. You have to understand it's a sophisticated process of what you're
Hmm.
doing. You
Yeah.
just can do it from a non-traditional way. Non-tradition is, I think, more than anything, what's going to get you the most attention if you could think outside of the box. It's all about thinking outside of the box. You never have to compromise what you're trying to get across. You never have to compromise reaching your
Hmm.
client. You just have to strategically make sure your messaging, your marketing materials, and everything that you produce is totally aligned cohesively with what you're trying to
I
communicate.
think way too many companies, when it comes to their trade shows and events, they just leave it to chance. That's kind of how we came up with the concept of we say trade shows and events are a sales and marketing channel, not a cost of doing business. I just think too many companies treat it like a cost of doing business, right? Like every year as a business owner, I have to shop for healthcare for my entire team. It's a
Yeah.
cost of doing business to me. I hate it. It's unenjoyable. It's a money thing for me. Give me the best coverage for the least amount of money or the most reasonable program that I can find, right? That's not what an event is. You are customer facing, you are prospect facing, you are partner facing. So I think all those creative hooks and pieces that go into it, the company that shows up the best is the company that will create the most intrigue and the most interest. So from your seat, how would you help a company that's maybe stuck, right? They come to you, they're like, hey, Brian, we've been exhibiting at this show, we've been running this event, it's stale. We give out this junky swag, it's the same booth, we need help with our graphics, we need help with our giveaways, we need help with our story. We're drowning in like mediocrity. How do you help them?
One, if they're coming to the table and they're asking that, you're already halfway there, right?
Yeah,
So
you're
that's
right.
exciting. So I think what you're saying about the fact is, I think the industry has forever. It's like standard plug and play, right? This is the
Yeah.
way it does it. This is what it is. The booth will do this. Well, we're going to change the color. This year, the color's purple. We're going to do this. We're going to add a video screen. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have an organization that truly understands that they're going to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to get it. If you're not feeling uncomfortable, then you're not really pushing that, right? And then you also have somebody that creatively, someone that you trust that's willing to. I often think that working outside with a creative, with any creative, is kind of the best situation to be in because you're not dealing with how they fall in the line of their tier of like, there's the senior director, the executive director, the CEO, the CFO, they're not worried about if they do something like you can get someone who's like, I have no problem saying, hey, I hear what you're saying and you want to do that. I said, but I don't really think you're maximizing. My opinion is this. In the end,
Yes.
they can do what they want, but I'm not afraid to tell, you like, if you want this, come on, don't hold back now, right? Don't
Yeah, yeah, I love
ad
that.
campaigns, have your
Yeah.
marketing material, have everything, have your whole, create every single, get your team involved, and companies from an internal core of the company. This company, like make your company cool. And I mean, people that work there want to be associated with something that's really fun and cool, right? I
It's
mean,
got to be compelling.
it's got
Yeah,
to
it's
be
got to be
compelling. And
compelling.
so
Yeah.
not only you're forward facing like your clients, think about it from a core culture of what you do, right? And I think that what you want the people that work for you to be like, yo, check out this really cool booth they're doing, right?
Yeah.
You want them to get excited about it. That's going to come back internally and really give back to your culture of your organization. I mean, but people are going to be uncomfortable. It's to be expected, and they got to be ready to take a risk. I think what's important is there's a bit of hand holding in the beginning, and been like, hey, tell me about your last booth. Oh, that's a really good idea. What if we did that? Or how about this? Like,
Mhm.
what do you think about that? Like, and then kind of giving it reference to what's going on like now,
Yeah.
right? Like
Culturally.
the content has to
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
context of what they're going to do. It's like, what was your favorite thing that you've seen? What is your favorite commercial? What caught your eye, right? And I think as soon
Hmm.
as you start asking the questions, you'll realize that they already feel it. They already know. They
Yeah.
just, they just have to be able to put in a position that they can make that decision. And I think even companies that want to do it, I think sometimes the way the system's set, it doesn't allow it, right? So it
Yeah.
takes a company that's ready to be like, okay, well, this is not, if you look at how things are tradition have been traditionally marketed to how they are now, and the companies that are doing it, It is not traditional in any way, shape, or form across the board. They have to be ready to understand that, right?
I wrote this note here as you were talking. I was thinking because I was like, man, it's so true. Like, I think about any trade show that I've really ever been to. And I've been to so many now. There's always a couple booths that everybody's talking about. Everybody exhibiting and the installers and people down at the show floor when everything's being installed are like, oh shit, like that's wow, right? And then when the show opens up, there's always a crowd. There's always people watching. There's always people gawking. There's always people walking by looking and like it creates intrigue. It's the same thing with general marketing too. The companies that market well, they garner all the attention, and I think about when you're in person, it's like kind of part of your goal is to garner the attention. So
100%.
So why are we not executing intentionally and strategically to go garner that attention? Right. And I think it takes people talking about it and pushing it and saying like, and it's hard. Like people that are in my seat when, we work with a lot of event marketers that as great as they are, they don't have the influence at their company to make the call. If they did, things would be way cooler.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a much
it would be
bigger,
way cooler.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. But they're kind of the hands of tons. That's why I think when you have an outside creative, a consultant, someone who's going to give you the ideas, someone, even just to break your way of thinking about it for your team. I do believe there's people, creative directors in these organizations that really have amazing capabilities. I feel that they're stifled, unfortunately, because of how things have traditionally run. You want if there's a stage, you want your company to be on that stage. You want that attention. You want it. You don't need to be cocky. You don't need to be arrogant. You could be humble still, but you want people to know that and when people see whoa, they went for it. What is that show about? They're going to go that extra mile.
They think you care. They think you give a shit. They think you're into it. You love this.
Well, you are into it because if you're into it.
I know. Put the time. You put the time.
You're into it.
What's funny is maybe 2-3 years ago, and I won't name the client because they're a client and they're a very good client. I love them, but they are a bureaucratic mess inside their organization. They can't do anything without red tape. But we're having a conversation, and I jumped on the phone, and it was about their program for the year. And we're having this conversation. I'm like, tell me, they're very stuck on this competitor that they sit across from. And I'm like, well, what makes you better? Like, are you better? Are you different? They erupted on the phone, just throwing things at me. Oh, we're better at They were pissed off. I asked the question and I was like, this is great. And one of them, as they started narrowing it down, I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? I was just kind of playing stupid and asking questions. And as we fine tuned it down, they said something. And I'm like, guys, that's it.
That's it.
That's the story that you go tell. Because that's the story, that's the theme,
but they
that's
had
the
to
push.
Get to the place that they were able to let go, right?
And really, of course, yeah.
But that's the emotion that I'm talking about. Get that out. It's almost like in the brand. And I think people are afraid of saying the wrong. I always say there's a discovery session or a brainstorm session. Anything that's said in the brainstorm session is great. Anything.
Yeah. Just go ahead. Just throw it out.
No
there.
dumb, because that one idea that maybe that was a dumb idea. You take a separation from that, and it could be the brilliant thing that makes it all work, right? And I think that what I say might, I blurt something out, you might run off of that, and then something magical happens, right? Yeah. But I think people are so worried about being brilliant, they don't allow things to become brilliant, right?
Yeah.
They don't allow things to become that magical thing,
What do you think for maybe the event marketer that's listening to this as a podcast right now? And it's like, well, I'm kind of more the executor. I don't have as much influence in my organization as I'd like, but I know we need to be more creative. I know we need to do things different. I know we need to show up differently. I don't know. How would you guide them? What would you tell them to do?
I would say it's a hard position to be in, right? I mean, I'll be honest.
It is very difficult.
Because in one case, they're putting themselves on the line. If for some reason it doesn't go, so you start to go and run. I said the biggest problem that I have with all this stuff, and I will get back to your question, is when you start to develop an idea, you got to think about full execution. What does this look like? The problem is that what they may want to do by the end that it gets there is it's so muted and homogenized and blanded out, that it doesn't reflect really what they wanted to do begin with. However, they don't want to put themselves on the line because within that structure and the way that the structure of the company is, it's no longer what they do, right? It's no longer what they wanted to do, but they're responsible to something that really didn't go there. It went halfway.
Yeah.
If you're not going to go like you got to jump in
All
the
the way.
water or don't put your toe in, you got to
Yeah.
jump in it or just stay on the shore. Like that's how
Most companies live with their toe in the water, and they throw how many meetings I've been in where someone's like, "Oh, we want something new and cool and fresh," and they use all these stupid words. And then it's like, "Well, we saw this thing and we want to do it." And I'm like, "Why? Like, what is it tied to? What is this?" You know what I'm saying? And it's like, even when people want to elevate, what ends up happening is ideas just get stolen and passed around.
yeah.
Right. To
Well,
be able to
what's
go get
on,
used.
it's like what's on trend, right? But I don't,
Yes.
what's on trend, you want to be the trendsetter, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you want to be the trendsetter, but really, I think you want to be the organization that thinks outside of the box, really. It thinks outside of the
Mhm.
box. It's pushing those things. You're creating an experience. Like your booth should be experiential. Like the
Yep.
number one thing, you have to convey your message, but you could do that in when you understand it. And I think coming from the art world, when you understand the language of art, how to talk about things, how to like, it's such a higher tier of like, it's not about if your work is even good. It's about how you talk about it, how you discuss it, the context that you put it in. You could put anything in a context, right? So I think what happens is people just have to know there needs to be when people go to the booth and the people that work in the booth, this is
Yeah.
our booth and this is what it's about, right? And this is
Yeah.
and they need to be explained so that they can convey it. And then people, because no doubt people are going to go be like, what's going on here? And people are like, come on, you are then boom, you're
Yeah.
engaging, you're bringing them into the booth, right? You're having them talk about things, they're having them, and if nothing, they walk away remembering it, and they're going to walk away with your remembering your interaction because it
Yeah.
was tied in an environment that's unique, right? That's an
Yep.
experience. That's an experience.
You know, I've long said that like a huge goal inside of a trade show booth is whether it's themed, experiential, all the above put together, where someone's like walks up to you and is like, "What's going on here? Like, what's the deal?" And the way you explain it and the way the story that you pitch as to why and what you're doing is really the story of your point of view,
Yeah.
your mission, your value proposition, your differentiation, your whatever it is, the problem you solve for the customer, the way you make your customer's life better after having worked with you. That's the gold. That's the story. That's what you're trying to convey to somebody. Very difficult to do, but I think that's kind of utopia for me.
I think too, like if you want to talk about like ROI, right? I mean, you want to
Yeah.
talk about like, oh, we got this many clients from this many things, this many meetings from, but what you realize is it's not, I don't think it's a sprint. I think it's a race that you have to train for. Like you're building something up, right? I mean, ROI, I mean, you're talking about quantitative compared to qualitative data, right?
Yep.
Quantitative, actual, factual numbers. This is what it is. This many meetings, this many sales, this many. Qualitative, the emotional, the human touch, like the
It's
human
feeling.
interaction.
Yeah.
It's everything now. It's
Yeah.
everything now. You just have to make sure you stay in front of people, right? That's
Yeah.
the key is like you have to show up, right? So, you know, it comes doing booths. There comes a point you do a booth, you can't afford not to do a booth, right? So what happens is
Mhm.
people like, yo, it's not about even because people, it's so mundane what they do. It's not about doing it because it just becomes routine. It's like, man, if we don't do it, like it's going to look that we're not out there,
Yeah.
right? We're not doing it.
Yeah.
So what happens is people don't invest the energy and they just feel like, oh, we'll just do another one because we'll just show up to show up. And that's not doing anything. It's just wasting your money.
Yeah.
But the industry has kind of created that, right? So it's like you
Yeah.
notice who's not there, right? But why not notice who's really taking it one step further, right? That's my
Yeah.
thoughts.
Obviously, swag is an area of your expertise here. Being creative with swag, thinking differently outside the box with swag. What does that look like for, people listening? Because I feel like, they are always looking for something new, unique, different, delivering something different to their customers to help them stand out. So what would you kind of recommend? How do you think about that?
I think that a great way now, and especially within the newer generation of the new workforce coming in, that they want to support organizations that support something. right?
Something.
I
Yeah.
think if you approach it from a philanthropic kind of headset, right, or mindset, to think about like what good do we want to do? Like what are we doing? And what makes sense on what we support, right? Like what cause? Like what is your cause? Like what are you doing to give back? That's the first question you should ask because you want that viewer to not that client to not only walk away with what you're offering, you need to walk away with who you are. So think about who you are, what you support, and how you're giving back. I believe your marketing material should reflect that. I think if you focus on that, then there's multiple ways you can do it, right? And why do you see like the trends and the movement of people were doing like the cards that were the seeds that people can put the seeds out? People were doing like, every coin that you get or raffle ticket, we're going to donate $1 to this organizations, right? We're going to do, I think there's been a lot of movement away from the tchotchke, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
tchotchke is just something that is what has always been done. There's industries and companies that is what they do, right?
Yeah.
Putting a logo on something is not a marketing material.
I agree.
It's not, but there's a retraining of somebody to do it, So I think with
Brian, you know what's funny about what you're saying? What's funny about what you're saying, I'll let you finish, sorry,
no, go ahead.
is all the stuff that we put our logo on is all stuff that we give out to our internal staff. Shirts for my fabrication crew. All the guys in the back are wearing uniform, bright blue with black letter shirts. We have all, for our team that travels or like Yetis, like the one right here, like a
Yeah.
blue Yeti. It says, we craft you conquer our slogan, but like when we send stuff to people, it's like it's totally different. It's
It
more
has to be
personalized.
different.
It's not, hey,
There's
here's a
something
Rockaway
with,
shirt. Yeah.
yeah, and it's something that has to do with your core culture of who you are, right? So internal, your
Mm-hmm.
external facing, like what you give, it should not be the same thing. Like, because the people there, you're basically saying, hey, you're a part of our team, you're part of our community, the thing that you're putting out, you're telling people like, we want you to be part of our community, right? So how do you draw them in? I think if people go from their who they are, what they want to support, there are many organizations out there that you can support. I think the idea of taking something away, like this is marketing material. Okay, sometimes the marketing material ends here is in here because
Mm-hmm.
think about it. That 90% you have the goodie, we call them goodie grabbers, right? So you have the people that go around to every show and just collect everything.
With a bag, and they're
You're
just
like the goodie
shoveling
grabbers
shit
are
into a
here. It's
bag.
just like
Yeah,
boom, boom,
it's
boom, because you're
ridiculous.
like, I'm
Yeah.
going home. I've been away from my family. I'm gonna bring, especially the guys, they could bring home this thing and there's a ball and there's a
Yeah.
squishy thing and a fidget spinner
Yeah.
and they give it to the kids. The kids love it. Or people get it because the boots give it to you and not whether you want it or not, right? You feel
Yeah.
bad by not taking it. Where does it end up? It ends up in that garbage can of your hotel because you don't
Yeah.
want to bring it on the plane with you.
Yeah.
That's a fact. It is a waste of money. It is
Mm-hmm.
a waste of money unless you do something that has a purpose. It's like products with a purpose. You have
What do
to.
you recommend? What's some things that you'd recommend? I mean, what are things you've done working with companies that you thought were like a hit, went well?
I think it depends on where you can. I think different tiers of sponsorship have different things, right? So if you're able to like, instead of sponsor just a banner, if you're able to sponsor an activation, anything that you could do that's going to drive traffic back, like for example, and this is specific, we have an organization, we have a nonprofit that supports kids,
Yep.
and all of our patch designs are made by different artists. We work with different corporations. We work with Make-A-Wish and Leukemia Lymphoma Society, American Cancer Society, Pfizer, like a wide range of organizations. We've done engagements that we work with that organization. We have kids of ours that are battling cancer that do drawings. And then they help fund this patch to be made. And what we do, one activation was we have it out. They put it on all the chairs of everybody. They write a kind message to a kid. They collect them,
Yeah.
give them back. We send them to kid. 360 degrees. They go a month and a half later, you see these kids battling cancer with these patches on their jacket, right? There is the impact, right? So you want to try to do something that shows the impact because then what you're dealing with social is you're dealing with, okay, this is something we're doing and oh, this is where it exists, right? Like this is something that our company is committed to, right? Oh, we're going to put wells in Africa. We're going to do, and here's a photo of the well that we put in, right? I think people, they need to see that the follow through is there. Maybe it's about engaging people to come back. So maybe it's about, some sort of thing they have to drop back off to your booth. But what is that thing they want to drop back to your booth that's exciting for them to want
Yeah.
to drop back because they're giving back?
Yeah. Funny enough, we used, for those who are listening and don't know, we throw our own event, and we use Brian's patches as a giveaway to our clientele, right? To our event marketers that we hosted. And it was pretty simple. It was like, hey, I think we gave them a note in their rooms when they checked in that said, hey, rather than give you a bunch of crap that you're going to throw away, here's what we're doing, right? Here's what we're giving you. You're getting a patch. This is going to a kid that's battling cancer. You're going to get to write them a nice note. This is going to get sewed onto a jacket, a book bag, or whatever it may be. And I think it was done for us to the right audience, because our audience, right? Yeah. When I think about our audience, they've seen all the swag. They've seen all the tchotchke. They've seen all of it. So they're a perfect audience to do it for, because they are going to appreciate it, which I think is a huge part of understanding how to deliver to your audience.
Yeah, 100%, and just as a model of so for example, this is a patch design on the back. We incorporate, this is one that was done with Moderna. We do the brand here. The QR code can really either lead to our programming, or it could lead to your page about what you do. This is marketing material that sometimes, what's great is you want a marketing material that it's not, you can take it and you could use it on your next show, right? You could take it and give it to you could do something with activating your people in your office. And letting you have to know your people that work for you, that what is the company culture? How can they help? How can they be involved, right? There are many, many ways. I think it's based on the cause of, one, what is our cause, right? What do we want to support? And then it's just creatively, like you would with a booth, come up with how can we engage people coming to a booth? How can we hopefully bring people to our booth? And how can we then appreciate people for being involved? And what can they walk away with, whether that's how they feel, whether that's something that they're a small takeaway, but then how does that takeaway have a second leg, right? How does that takeaway something more?
That's good stuff. Brian, what do you think from, people talk a lot about what's memorable. And when you're in person and you're at an event and you're having these experiences with different people, peers, clients, prospects, what do you think sets something? What makes it memorable? When you think about that, you're trying to create memories, or you're trying to set an experience or visuals for memories, what do you think about?
I think for me, it's when something is unique. When something is unique, when you go somewhere and something is different than what's expected, right? The surprise, and it's funny because people are afraid of doing something different, but in the end, different is always what's most successful. Always. It's never not the case, because even if I always tell people because listen, not everyone is going to love you, booth, but you know what? Everyone's going to remember it.
Yeah.
Isn't that the purpose?
Sure.
Isn't that the purpose? Even that's the purpose of what you do. And they're going to be like, hey, wait. And I've heard this multiple times working with companies on multiple booths, right, over the years. And they were like, wait a minute, aren't you guys that did this? Did you do the one 2 years ago? Boom. You are establishing that relationship and be like, and then because it takes time to nurture those kind of interactions, then it's like, hey, well, you know what? I really want to what exactly did you guys do? Right.
Yeah.
That's
so I love those two answers about unique, something unexpected, or something different than what they are expecting, because people do have expectations when they go to an event, when they go to your booth, when they go to your class, when they go to your sponsored lunch, when they go to your whatever it is in an event. They have an expectation of what that always looks like. And I think surprise and delight is always something that works, being unique. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that working with a client the other day. We were talking about these 1-day events that they run that's on the road. And I just went to the event, sat in on it, kind of observing, and, they're kind of asking me, what do you think? What are the changes? Blah, blah, blah. And as I thought about it, I just thought to myself, I think the client that they're bringing in is expecting what you're delivering. even though it's great, even though it's top tier. It's a top tier 1 day style event, but they are expecting this because your competitors are doing it. So I said, I don't know what I would do yet. I have to think about it more, but my instinct is let's do something they're not expecting. That would be my instinct. Let's leave. So that like when they walk in or they leave, they're like, oh shit, I really like, that was
Yeah,
great. Like I didn't expect that at all.
Familiar is easy.
Yeah.
And it's safe.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's where, look at like, I think there was something that, 96% of the world is sheep, and you have the three that are the shepherd. Like, the three, most people just follow what happens because it's safe. You're not, yeah, okay. So to equate it to like artwork, right? I've reviewed hundreds and hundreds of portfolios over the years, right? And you have a student come and they bring the work or it's not done, right? And it's, and so not doing the work is the biggest cop out. And it's not if you have massive ability or not, because what happens is someone says to you, hey man, this is really good, I just wish you, and be like, yeah, I know I didn't finish it, So you're not taking criticism for not doing it, but you're also not taking the praise for knocking it out of the park, right? So I think it's safe to stay in that place of non-committal.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
Just being non-committal. You got to go for it. You got to commit. And you know what? When you could stand there and tell people it's amazing, people will believe it.
I love that you said that. And while you were saying it, it just made me think like just me personally, my journey as like a 39-year-old CEO that's building a company. I'm in a CEO group, right? It's like a Vistage group with a bunch of CEOs. And there's some really good CEOs and much bigger companies and people with all different experiences than what I have. But the other day, I had to kind of present to that group of my peers a problem, a scenario, what I've done about it, what kind of help I'm seeking. And man, standing up there and having to say, this is what the problem is. This is why I think it exists. And I'm putting myself out there. I'm putting my leadership, my company, everything out there. And then to sit there and field questions and to listen, it is very difficult to do. And I'm assuming it's the same way with art or being creative. You have to put yourself out there and then but you have to complete it as well, so that people can come back to you and say, hey, what about A, B, and C? And then you go back and you retool. And then you go back and you redo. And that's how you just get better and better. But it is a very it's uncomfortable because you are like, my business is kind of like in the, like you're with your children, your business, your art, these things that you're emotionally attached to. I don't know what it is, but it's difficult to share those things. It's difficult to hear that you're not doing something well or thinking about it the right way or delivering where you need to. It is vulnerability, but I think that's a great point that you made, because having the ability to see something through and finish it and then be criticized or critiqued after taking that emotional risk or that chance or that whatever you're pouring into it, man, you learn a lot. You learn a lot.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. I always say that your situation that you're in now and your situation that you're in 10 years from now is not going to be any different. And what I mean is, one person's going to love what you do, one person's going to hate what you do, and the other person's not going to care. So how do you feel about it, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about what you're doing? I think if organizations, companies, corporations are okay with taking a risk, I can pretty much almost guarantee 100% it's going to be worth it for them. To get them the point to think that they can take a risk, to trust in somebody, to go on that journey and take that risk with them is scary for them.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you are face to face, which you said is everything.
It's the catalyst for relationship building. It expedites things. It absolutely is it's an escalator. You know what I mean?
Who are they giving Addy awards to? Who are they giving advertisement to, design awards? They're not giving it somebody that thinks inside of the box. I mean, like, it hits you in the face. Like, they're giving people that are doing something different in every single industry. Why is it any different about the exhibition world? It shouldn't. The only thing that's to change is the way people think about it.
I love that. Brian, this was an awesome conversation. I love talking to you, man. You're very creative, honest. We're on the same wavelength with some of this stuff. You were incredibly helpful for us at our host event at EMC. I know you typically do some very large scale stuff with your, with your Oliver Patch project, which is anybody that's listening, go look up the Oliver Patch project. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's super cool cause. It's creative. It's fun. It's makes you feel a part of something. If you're running your own events, which a lot of you are, I would really push you to look at the Oliver Patch project as an option for your attendees. But Brian, you taking care of us and us having our attendees get those. It was a moment in the room for sure. It was a cool moment. I think people really appreciated the like, wow, you're thinking of us, right? Like you see us, you're thinking of us, and like you delivered for us something that we would want to do ourselves, but we weren't able to, rather than some, piece of crap thing that I'm like, hey, here's a Rockway branded hoodie.
Yeah.
Hope you like it. So grateful for you for that, for doing that and jumping on this podcast with me.
No, listen, honor's mine, and Matt, thanks. And I appreciate, in the industry leading that way of like creative thought, right? I mean, that's really important. That's really important. People need to do that. And I want to encourage everybody out there in the exhibition world and clients, like, go for it.
We're trying to be like the idea center, man. We want to help people with ideas and then get to the design and the fabrication. We're like, let's lock in an idea that's going to sell, that's going to emotionally move people, that's going to position you properly to achieve what you want to achieve. And then we'll go design, then we'll go build and do all those things. So fun talk, man. That's another episode of Event Marketing Redefined. We appreciate it. Brian, thanks for doing this, man. Always good seeing you. I always love the patches and the jackets and everything you got going on over there. It's fun. All right,
Appreciate
cool.
it.
Thank you.
Have a good one, man.